Fuck you for that. All right, and we're live. We're not like live. This is a pre-recorded session, but
Oh, good. So you can cut this out.
maybe. So I'm SCP-20. Welcome to the channel. I play a lot of Pathfinder Second Edition on this channel, but we also play other tabletop role-playing games. And one of the other ones that we're going to discuss today is the new D&D 1 that is being released sometime in 2024, and we got our hands on the first playtest document. Of course, I'm not just talking about this myself. I have these illustrious guests below me, the Board Game Bears, Will and Blake.
Hi.
Hi. And I'm sure everyone at home is saying hi right back. So let's get started. First, I want to know, what are your guys' experiences with tabletop role-playing games, D&D or otherwise? Let me know.
Yeah, so I've been DMing for D&D for the better part of 6 years now. So my experience has been, I've been late to the game, so my experience is pretty much exclusively 5e as far as DMing goes. I'm in the process of learning the rules for 10 Candles and Dread. So once we get into October, so you can do some cool spooky tabletop stuff. So that's been my experience. Player for slightly longer than I've been DMing, but I've been DMing for a while. So
Hell yeah.
And I am fairly new to this. I don't even think I've hit the year mark with tabletop role play, but it was always something that I was interested in. And when we started our first campaign together, I fell in love with it. So, and I'm really excited to delve deeper into it.
It's a blessing and a curse. I don't know if you should be excited because it's a very dark road. And as everyone knows on this channel, I've been playing D&D for about, oh my god, like 16 years or something. I've started off with 3.5, played 4, beta tested 5, since 5e. Of course, I found the light and switched over to Pathfinder 2nd Edition as my main game, but excited to see what Wizards of the Coast is cooking up. So with that being said, after reading over this first chapter, what do you think about it so far? Some shakeups happening here.
Some shakeup, but I'm very excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm seeing, and I'm sure that you'll kind of probably share the same sentiment, is that it seems like they're doing a lot more to give you the ability to customize, to really make it your own.
Yes, absolutely. And that's something that I kind of herald Pathfinder 2nd Edition a lot as super customizable. Every level you get a new feat to further customize, but a lot of my players are very kind of scared of all those choices, so I'm excited to see how D&D is going to manage that. Blake, how do you feel about these choices or this new wave of like rules as a new player?
I mean, I'm really excited because you can, I mean, the world's your oyster. You can create whatever you want, and it doesn't, to me as a beginner, it doesn't seem intimidating. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to delve in, see, what kind of new character I can create with this, and yeah.
So now I'm going to ask about a little tea, because I've been following the Reddits, I've been following the TikTokies, and a lot of people are kind of wary about the rollout of this new edition, which Wizards of the Coast do not want to call this a new edition. This is just Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I love it because it's how they described it is, there is no longer going to be an edition. It is one D&D, and it's just going to be this ever growing build on, I guess, the 5th edition, right? That's kind of what they were saying. So they're taking everything we loved about 5th edition and then all the great stuff about the previous editions, and then building on that and making kind of like breaking it open and letting everybody do what they want to do and create the content they want to create. So
And I will say personally, I was kind of nervous about it.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
and I think that comes from my saying, okay, I invested so much time into learning these umpteen books. You know, I think I've spent more time studying some of these textbooks than I did the textbooks I had when I was in school.
Dead ass. Full stop. Like.
So I was a little bit nervous about that, and just the amount of time I spent learning the rules, the amount of money I had spent on materials, I was a little bit nervous about that. And I can still kind of see that for people who are still fans of some of the older editions, like the 3E, 3.5, 4E. But I do like the fact that it really does kind of build on 5E, and that and because it is going to be so flexible in that regard. And I think every DM does this anyway. Like, it allows you flexibility as the DM to kind of mix and match rules that work for your group, right? Like I like what I'm seeing in this, and just what they're already doing with the races, what they're already doing with the origins, and what they're already doing with the spells. It's almost like they're codifying the rule of cool, right? Just saying what works for your table, what works for your group. We're going to give you the tools to make that the rule, the lay of the land. Like the official law of the D&D kingdom is now going to be, do what works. Here's a system, and you can mold it to what you need it to be.
Absolutely. I'm gonna have to follow you up with that, because I don't know if I see that, but maybe I'm just a D&D hater at this point. I'm definitely a super pretentious Pathfinder player. And my first impression, like reading over some of these rules, is that, oh, I see you got this from Pathfinder. Okay. Which is what I did with Pathfinder 2nd edition, in comparison to 4th edition. It was like, oh, I see you got this from 4th edition. All right. And a lot of these changes I do like, and that's like part of the reason why I like 2E, and I'm glad to see like ideas coming between companies making a better product. But I'm a little worried about the new, constantly evolving 1 edition, because you will always have to have a subscription to D&D Beyond. I don't think this is going to be something where you're going to buy it once and then be able to play however long you want. I think this is going to be a monthly subscription, a multi-tier subscription. They're making their own Roll20, and they're going to force you to buy all the cute costumes, all the tiles you want to make like the maps that you imagine. So I'm a little sus. I'm a little sus, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I'm also a hater, so.
So I can absolutely see that point. I'm also the kind of person who abhors digital medium like that. So I'm not going to be using that program, for example, to run my games. Like I am going to have my home game, and I'm going to build my terrain physically. But I can definitely see that being for long distance situations. I can see there will probably be a bit of, an attempt to monetize that, which makes sense. It's a good business. And I think where they're really making the value added is by helping you to kind of come along from a lot of those other platforms that people have been using during the pandemic. Because, everybody uses Roll20, and Roll20 can be a bit much for some people. Everybody uses the program we're on right now, and it's a buggy mess. So I think what's gonna be the tell in whether this is successful or not is how reliable this program is, how visually pleasing it is. User friendliness is going to be a hugely important thing. And then I think just the issue of what's an appropriate price point. that people are going to be willing to pay for this.
One thing that I thought was interesting was, I mean, they talked a lot about making it much more user-friendly and great for beginners. They're actually wanting to make it easier for people who are interested in becoming a DM to let them break into that world. So I'm excited about that. And then also, I believe, aren't they using the Unreal Engine? I think for which I mean, when you think of that's what I always think of. So I watched some of the video footage and I thought that was really cool. I agree with you that I think it'll be great for people who maybe are doing long distance campaigns. But I also love that they're doing. I mean, what it sounded like is, so if you get, let's say, the map they created, in addition to that, I guess you own all of the different aspects of that, so you can change it however you want and turn it into whatever you want. So I think that's pretty cool that they kind of give you a starting off point, and then you can kind of make it your own. And, you know, if you want to take a dungeon that's one level and then turn it into a, 2 level and make it all crazy, you can do that with what you have.
Yeah, I do like that. I'm very curious because I use a program called Foundry, and a lot of us like Pathfinder heads use it, and it's the clunkiest, the buggiest, but it runs the game for you. And for such a rules dense thing as Pathfinder, you kind of need it. So I'm very curious to see how that program runs and how beautiful it will be, and most importantly, if it's going to crash my players' computers. They're all running on 10-year-old Macs for some reason. So with that being said, let's get into the rules. Everyone was given these character origins as the first Unearthed Arcana for this new edition. And anyone who is on the channel will know that my favorite thing is creating characters. I love it. I love coming up with the most specific, niche character who's only good at one thing and sucks at everything else, and customize the shit out of them. So I was really excited to see what these rules were going to look like. First things first, we kind of go over, in the PDF that I have showing right now, we go over feats, character backgrounds, which they changed a lot, and character races. How do we feel about this first kind of overview of these rules? Do we like it? Do we wish they changed things? Do you wish they kept anything? How are we feeling?
So, overall, I'm a fan. I really love what they've done with Origins. Because I found that was something that was a little bit frustrating for me as a player, actually. I mean, I love the idea of Origins, but it was like when I was building a character, it would always be hard to say, okay, here's what I want to build that works according to the text laid out in the description, and here's what I want to build that works according to the stats. So it was like a constant battle between saying, all right, here's what I want to do story-wise that's super cool, and here's what I want to do mechanically. And I felt like sometimes when I was building a character, I had to sacrifice a little bit of that if I was going to be strictly adhering to the rules of 5e. What I think this lets me do is full broad-scale customizability. And I'm thinking of different players that are in my campaign. You know, some of them are newer to D&D, and the selection process was grueling, and they just wanted to just say, can't I just do this? And ultimately that's what we did. And honestly, I think that what a lot of the Unearthed Arcana and a lot of the playtest material comes from is from feedback from players. So I'd be willing to say that I'm probably not the only DM who's already doing this for their players, and Wizards is just listening in and saying, all right, how do we make this a little bit smoother?
Yeah.
What I really like about some of the changes they've made is kind of taking away a lot of the what is it called? Biological determinism, I think is the phrase, where it's like, dwarves are strong and they have constitution, but my dwarf might not be like that. and putting that all into backgrounds. I think that was a very
Mhm.
smart move. I wish they removed the term race, because I definitely think that the way we approach race in our world and our realm is so different from how it's depicted in D&D that I think
Mhm.
like switching that up will probably be healthier for the game and healthier for the players. But I really do like how they switched it out and gave each individual like ancestry a spell or more game changing ability that's still going to be relevant as you gain levels.
Absolutely, and it seems like they're just kind of continuing what they already did uh, with the latest book release, um, which I have forgotten the title of because I am the worst.
Um, I don't know it. I've been like
the the new
Mordecai,
Monster Menagerie.
Mordecai's
No, it's
Tome
not
of
Mordecai. It's
Everything.
no, that's older. This the newest upgrade to the Monster Manual, Monster Menagerie. Um, we'll have to like put some text in here that actually shows
Yeah,
like
I'm not doing
what it
that.
is we're talking about.
You know what? The channel name is Messy B. I say it, the viewers, you should know that I am completely unqualified to talk about anything
Right,
about
right.
this. We're just giving off the
But
cuff feedback. But yes,
yeah,
they are going in line with previous books and the changes there, and those have been greeted with a
yes,
lot of like positive feedback. Um, so let's
yeah.
break it down each race one by one, starting with the most boring one out of all of them, humans.
Human.
Yep.
How do we feel about humans?
I having been a human for almost my entire life, um, I can say that you know humans are still going to be a little bit boring, but it's I think it's a good shift for what they had been. I think it gives you more flexibility to use a human in the game and not feel like you're getting short shrift for having picked something that wasn't more fanciful.
Mm-hmm. Can you go more into that? Because that's a really interesting like point of view about the human race.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the older 5e edition, it was always like the humans are meant to be this balanced kind of almost basic slate to work from, and you didn't have all this legendary lore associated with them. You didn't have like you didn't have like dark sight. You didn't have the ability to meditate for 4 hours and get a long rest. You didn't have this advanced lifespan. You didn't have and more importantly, you didn't have these codified stat increases. I think the whole point of it, I mean, it even does still say here in this one, is versatility, you know. And I think what they did here in giving you a trait for that, or a feat for that, is better than just saying, okay, here you can just spread these stat point distributions wherever you want, like it used to be. Because that almost felt like it felt a little bit almost like an afterthought, just saying like, well, we don't know how to say the human is still worthwhile, so we'll let you decide how the human is worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
And while I like that idea because we are in a very adaptable species, it's true. Um, I feel like this gives you a more story-driven control of that rather than a strictly mechanical control of that, which as a player I think will give you more ownership of the character.
More ownership. Yeah, I completely agree. Am I've never played a human. I don't know if I plan to. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe 60 might
Mm.
change. 60 kind of sounds like sexy. Ooh, just realized that. Maybe that will make me change my opinions. But like, how do you feel about humans? Like playing them, perceiving them?
It's very funny when I started creating my first character. I was just like, human? Nope.
Where's the
I'm just
lie?
like, what is the point of getting into D&D and being a human? Like, I wanted to be something exciting. After reading this, I mean, no, I probably wouldn't be a human anyway, but I'm sure there are some people that want to be that resourceful, skillful, versatile human.
And those people are fucking freaks. No, I'm half joking.
Well,
I'm
and you know
half
what?
joking.
Maybe this is good for a newer player who
Mm,
maybe they find being a tiefling intimidating or something.
mhm.
This is maybe a way to dip your toes in the water.
For sure. Something I really like that they added for humans is that they added a small size to be selectable for this race. I think that's a really good step in being more inclusive.
Yeah.
And I think as a DM, I would just be like, sure, absolutely. But I think really codifying it and allowing people in the rules and encouraging them is a great step in that
Absolutely.
regard.
Yeah.
And
I just realized our battery's at 3%. I'm going to run and get a cord.
Quickly, swiftly.
This is life.
This is life. So that's all I want to talk about humans. I think their resourceful trait is interesting. You gain inspiration whenever you finish a long rest. I think giving them that hero point or inspiration point is a really interesting way to diversify humans from other races. Kind of what you were talking about.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a good little taste of what's to come.
Yes.
That being the brand new race and ancestry, at least I've never seen these before. The Ardlings, which let's just call a spade spade. They're furries. They're angelic furries.
See,
Am I lying?
I disagree with you on that. Because I think the furries are the other strictly animal race, like the tabaxi or the turtles.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Aardlings, like, to me, when I first saw that description, that immediately struck me as both being kind of driven from almost the Egyptian pantheon with all these animal-headed deities, and also from drawing from Christian angelology, some of the angels or being depicted as having sometimes animalistic heads. And I think you see that sometimes in classical art depicting angels, where to kind of distinguish them from being humans, they'll have those kind of traits. So I think that fits really well with the theme of the Ardlings, kind of almost replacing the Asimar of these angelic or heavenly beings with the blood of the beings from the higher planes of existence in the D&D world. Yes, I do think it also offers flexibility. Like, okay, my animal of choice is not represented in the current set of races, so I want to have a weasel-headed person. All right, you have a weasel angel.
From the idyllic plains of the Beastlands.
Like, I would like to have a mollusk head, please.
Well, with an Ardling, you sure can. You sure. I'm holding you to that.
Like body of a man, head of a clam.
Yeah. And
I make pearls. So something about this race that I found sus, that I found questionable, but it's a playtest document, so I can't hold this to Wizards of the Coast too closely, is that they're giving the Ardlings the ability to fly as a bonus action on top of their typical movement speed, and they could do that multiple times a day based off of their proficiency modifier. I think that's way more powerful than any of the choices we see in this book. thoughts, opinions?
Well, I like it because it holds true to what the ASMR could do. So it feels like we're not totally leaving that behind in favor of the greater versatility that we have with this new set of rules. I mean, I did think with the ASMR that was a little bit OP, but at the same time, I think you can, if you're a good storyteller, you can play around with that a little bit. Again, there's nothing saying you have to like make that work exactly the way that is, and I think that was like really masterfully done. For example, in Critical Role's second campaign, like they really told a good story showing how that kind of evolved and wasn't just treated like this OP, like look what I can do kind of ability. So I like, but yes, it is powerful, but I don't think it's game breaking by any means, and I think it's already been play tested enough through the ASMR that I think it's going to be stable enough here.
I don't know. At least they put a cap on it, unlike with the bird folk who could just do it all the time.
I mean, they have wings.
That's their whole thing. That's what they do. I feel like they need another penalty, like bird bones or something. They have less constitution, or I don't know.
Easily breakable.
Yeah. Oh, my bones. Easily breakable, hollow bones. I don't know. I always
tastes like chicken.
Tastes like chicken. People just want to eat ya, and not in the way you want.
Yes.
And so that I was like, okay, Wizards, okay, you're kind of popping off a little bit too hard, and giving them a spell at first level. Granted, these are really basic spells, but I'm pretty OP in my opinion. Sound off in the comments if you disagree, and like and subscribe. Next up, unless Blake, you have anything to add about our dear Aardlings?
No, I'm just trying to think of a story of my mollusk-headed Aardling now. I think, yeah, I'm excited. Yeah.
Please keep us updated as that story develops.
Scared.
Oh my gosh, can you please use the pearls as projectiles? That would be amazing.
Oh my gosh,
yes! Magic stones. And then I think her name should be Clamala. Clamala Clamderson.
Clamala Pearlson.
Or Pearl S. Fuck. Could be a good one. Based off of the renowned author of The Good Earth.
Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Dragonborn.
We just lost all of our literature people.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, sound off in the comments. Dragonborn. I'm so glad the Dragonborn are making a comeback. I love how we have a monstrous race in these introductory races. They were only introduced as recently as 4E. I'm glad that each edition since has added them to the core rulebook. So really happy to see them back. What I'm really happy about this time around, though, is that they can use their Dragon Breath more than once per day. Very happy to see that change. It's a change that they were playtesting earlier this year, but glad to see that they're sticking with it. How do y'all feel about the Dragonborn changes?
I mean, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. I think it does make them better, but I never really spent enough time really working with Dragonborn to like really say like, okay, this will really make my life as a DM or my life as a player that much easier. Like, I just wasn't really as concerned with them, so I don't know that I have a very strong opinion on that.
Yeah, I'll say the same. I've only done one campaign, and my person was not Dragonborn. It was one of those races that I read. I was like, oh, that seems cool. Next. So
yeah, I love them. I think they're so cool. I think they're underappreciated by everyone and current current friends, but definitely check them out more. I think they're a fun, like tough and rumble, rough and tumble. I don't know words. Um, class race to add to your selection. Big fan. Might be my next choice. Who knows? Ooh. So we'll move on to the next race, dwarves.
Mhm.
Y'all have to love dwarves. If you don't, I don't know what we're doing here. Like,
Yes. So I do like what they're doing with the dwarves here. Again, sticking with the idea that like the numerically, it's
mm,
not going to screw you to want to be like, oh, I want to be a dwarven ranger, you
mm,
know. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you still have these classical fantasy tropes that are still persisting.
mm,
So I think they've struck a really. This is the first time I think we see them striking a really good balance between existing fantasy tropes and making dwarves still feel like dwarves, but numerically, mathematically allowing you the freedom to explore what else dwarves can do. Like it's kind of silly to think that a dwarf can't fire a bow.
mm,
It's like of course they can. So why not make that? Why not codify that? Why not make that possible
mm,
mechanically? Like why penalize a player for wanting to do that? So I
mm,
think I think in doing this, they've kept the best of both worlds in this situation. I think.
mm. Agreed.
Yeah, definitely agree with that.
And I think that is really highlighted in the Forge Wise ability.
Mm,
Um, I like in how they kind of focus in on the tool proficiency and giving you the option of your choice for your tool proficiencies as well. So kind of really highlighting their ability as craftsmen.
mm,
Um, so still maintaining a little bit of the racial features without it being like my dwarf is just all about strength and either like head smashing or being like a particular kind of cleric.
mm. Yeah, I totally agree. I think all of these things still codify the dwarf as like a rough and tumble, which I guess I was talking about the Dragonborn, but it could be many different races, okay? But still high constitution, hard to kill. I really love the addition of stone cunning. It was always something different in like past editions as
Mhm.
like a throwaway bonus that you never use. Oh, I know more about stone. I know how they make this, guys. This is not helpful at all, but I know. I hope that helps a little flavor here. But now giving tremor sense of up to 60 feet um
Yeah.
as a bonus action, I love that. That really plays up dwarves paranoia and their suspiciousness of outsiders and kind of always being
Mhm.
on their toes and always being watchful. I think that is such a wise and cool addition to this race, and chef's kiss. All right. Any other thoughts of our favorite race? At least they're not my favorite, but I do love
It's like
dwarves. You know.
before we move into the elves.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
Oh, how do we feel about elves then? How do we feel about elves? We're just moving. We're just moving in.
So I love what they're doing with the Fey ancestry with the elves,
Mm-hmm.
having advantage on saving throws to avoid being charmed. Um, I love that. Um, I love that they're keeping the trance, so you can you don't need to be asleep to have your long rest. Um, and again, I love the increased flexibilities. Like if I can have a dwarf. Like I'm sorry, I can have an elvish barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I want that. I really want that because the stories behind that would be fantastic. Like what would lead that to happen in this race that has been throughout fantasy depicted as almost this waifish creature that like a stiff breeze could kill, you know.
Well, and I think this goes back to just breaking everything open and just allowing you to be who you want to be. And even like, you know, in today's world, I mean, you can do what you want to do. So why can't you do it in a made up world in D&D? I mean,
that's tea.
It makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I still love the removing of attributes from races and then putting them back into backgrounds. Another chef's kiss touch. And I really love how they're moving away from all drow are evil, and they all have deep, dark, black skin. I really like how they're moving away from that depiction and allowing the flexibility with that race being like, you don't have to be underground and evil. Some of them have escaped, and here's some examples. And of course, wizards always have to bring up Drizzt. I'm so fucking sick of Drizzt. I've never read any of those books. I've never played any of the games where he's in it. I mean, I guess he's cool, but they have to have other characters. And I do like how they name drop Jarlax, Brigadan. I'm running that campaign with that as the main antagonist, and I do not know how to pronounce his name, and that's an issue. And we're finishing up the final episode, and I still do not know how to say his name. This upcoming Saturday, make sure you tune in for the final episode, where I will figure out how to pronounce his name. Hey, that's who I am as a DM. What an interesting exclusion in this list of elves are the Eladrin. Where are they? Where's our Eladrin friends? Are they just being grouped into high elves?
I mean, I'm okay with that, honestly.
Okay.
Like, I think there's a balance that Wizards has to strike with, you know, like it's the big menu effect, right? If you go to a restaurant and you have a menu that is 20 pages long, I'm looking at you, Cheesecake Factory.
Shots fired at this Cheesecake Factory. Oh my gosh. You heard it here first. Canceled. Done.
Or like any New Jersey diner.
Yeah. But continue.
If you kind of trim things down a little bit, you know, it will kind of facilitate your choosing. And I think with the fact that we can customize so much, the need to have these already detailed preset things can go down a little bit. So I think that kind of serves the larger purpose. And so I think you can probably rebuild that mechanically and story-wise with the other choices you're going to make.
Oh yeah, and you could just say hi, elves. Like I was just trying to incite riots to start a little drama, you know. But yeah,
apparently I am too. So
yeah,
we just lost all the Cheesecake Factory people.
The Eladrin and Cheesecake demographic on this channel is about 0 people, and that's only because no one watches this channel. So it's honestly fine. We just alienated everyone. But you know, what are they gonna do about it? They can't do anything. They're not even in this edition. So Blake, do you have anything? We're not watching you anymore.
No, I don't have anything to add.
Right. Okay, so this is actually my favorite race coming up. I am a gnome stan. I'm either a gnome or a halfling in all my games. I am pretty much a very tall gnome in real life. I fucking love gnomes. I love being able to use my wide vocal register and do like a voice like this. And my name's Tingle. Tingle Bingle Dingleberry. Love that shit.
I feel like that's actually every gnome.
That's
Um,
every
right?
fucking gnome you've ever met, and I'm that girl.
Very floss heartstring.
I had a gnome named Melvin Dweewood who did not know the concept of death. He was a celestial gnome warlock, and he just thought he was helping people sleep when he eldritch blast people to death. Um, and then he found out what death meant, and there was a definite arc. Um, I love gnomes. How do you guys feel about gnomes?
As long as they aren't lawn gnomes, I'm okay.
You don't
Those
like a
things
lawn
are
gnome?
creepy. Oh gosh, no. I have like an irrational fear of lawn gnomes. They freak me out.
Good to know.
Oh my gosh. Like that cartoon that was on Nick Jr. when I was a kid with the gnomes. Oh no. Sorry.
What cartoon on Nick Jr. with the gnomes?
I think it was like David the Gnome or something like that. Ugh, they creep me out. They're like looking. It's like their eyes follow you. I swear, like, ugh, they do. No.
I just want to protect the lawns.
So what I've loved what they are doing with the gnomes here is the benefit you get from the different gnomish lineages.
Mm-hmm.
I think kind of fleshing that out a little bit more and making that kind of drawing into the I don't know if I want to call it the origin of the gnomes, but just like their kind of connection to their domain. You know, with the forest gnomes being illusory creatures. You know, it's like I know people who legit think that like lawn gnomes like move. I mean, I don't.
Well,
like
I
this
mean,
very much
they
because,
move their
like-
eyes apparently.
Well, no, this is
Oh no, I don't. No, it's not me. I don't think they actually move. I'm just saying they're creepy. Like I don't think they actually are alive.
No, but like this person's like, it's just an illusion. It's just an illusion. So it's just like, if that one person believes that, like maybe other people have this kind of thought going on through like whatever cultural awareness we have and how we think of the lawn gnomes. Apparently,
pulling through that shared subconscious, the collective unconscious.
But that they're these masters of illusion, or like that they're so adept at hiding themselves within the forest, within the trees. You know.
I love how we start off with speak with animals. I think because when I play a gnome, I want to be a fucking Keebler elf. I want to be friend of the wild. I want to talk to squirrels. I want to know all about their lives, their drama, like
and make yummy, tasty snacks.
Oh yeah, I cannot tell you how many times speak with animals has saved a life. Like I'm gonna speak with some animal. Like I have done it in the homebrew campaign that's we're airing every other Wednesday. Doom Dynasty, check it out. Plug. Where I spoke with bugs and that saved our lives. Like I love this spell. I love it. So getting that at first level is it's like a juicy fruit. It's like a nougaty treacle for me to just gnaw on. I love and the flavor. Also with rock gnomes being able to build, I think this is something that's already in D&D 5e with the gnomes. Love how they're keeping that. 10 gold seems very steep for a first level ability, but I don't know how money works. I still don't know how many silver goes into a gold. I don't know how many copper goes into a silver and how that's translated into gold. I still don't know. I've been playing this game for close to 2 decades, and I still don't know how that all works out. And I play so many RPGs based on it. It's sad, y'all. It's sad. Like, how does it work? Can you illuminate it for me?
10 copper to 1 silver, 10 silver to 1 gold, 10 gold to 1 platinum.
Okay,
I think.
well, that's what I thought.
And then there's Electrum in there somewhere, which I've never used because that's like the $2 bill of the D&D world.
Electrum.
Yeah. What's Electrum?
Electrum. I hardly knew him. What's Electrum?
Yeah.
No, it's another coinage currency, like just like the other metals, like. But nobody uses it because it is the $2 coin of the D&D world. It's like this weird intermediary between silver and gold.
Interesting.
Fuck that. And this is coming from someone who had a full session ruined by trying to figure out how much time and how much it would cost to go on a train in Eberron and what we would have to do to just ride the train. I don't know why my players were so interested in that, but no. Electrum, absolutely not. Comment below if you're a fan of Electrum, and then explain why you're wrong. Something I think is something that a lot of players are going to overlook, and something I overlooked until I reread it, is gnomish cunning. You have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. That is as OP or more than flight. Thoughts?
Yeah, I
Wow.
kind of glossed over that.
Yeah.
I did too, and seeing that,
Intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
like mind bending effects. Like,
yes,
that's sick.
But it tracks though. It tracks with what gnomes are. Like, the idea that they're these almost trickster like entities.
Yeah, it makes sense. I'm not gonna complain as a gnome user, but that's a spicy meatball right there, if I do say so myself. But I think that's just balancing out because of the magic they get. They would probably already have those spells, and they're very niche spells. So I think it kind of balances out. But I like it. Any other thoughts of the gnomes before we move on to my other favorite race?
So you like the short ones.
You like the little guys.
I think my best life would be as a twink makeup artist. And I think I really missed out on that, being like a thick, juicy, ass clapping, so I'm detected while stealthing man. So I just always wanted to be little. I don't know. And
wait. We have to back up a little bit. Do you twerk while you try and stealth sneak?
Yeah.
Because that's the only.
These
that's gonna give me away every time.
Yeah, I know. It's and that's why I can't go back to the Costco in Akron. Because I'm just too dummy thick. No, I'm just kidding. But the ass is good. You guys can't see it, but or at least it used to be, before I worked from home and I deflated it. Anyway, but I love short characters. I love being the comedic relief. I love playing like optimistic, Pollyanna-ish kind of characters a lot of the times. And halflings and gnomes really fit that niche for me. But what do y'all feel about halflings? Are they just knockoff gnomes? Do you think they should just be called hobbits, for God's sake? How do you feel?
I was actually thinking to myself, once again, I'm fairly new to D&D. I was like, is this like the Hobbit of the D&D world? And yes, it is. After reading, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, reading both, they seem to have very different flavors to them. Like the halflings, they're the more adventurous type. I feel like those may be more of the troublemakers as opposed to like a gnome.
Yeah, I've always kind of thought of it. I've thought of like the dichotomy between like gnomes and halflings as being like magic short entities and like adventure short entities.
Like when I think halfling, I would think of like a rogue. Like doing that. Like,
oh hell yeah, they're roguey as fuck. But I also love how luck appears a lot in their divinities and their backstories of just being lucky. I think this is no surprise. I love a character who's just like, I don't know how I did that. Or like, oh, how am I going to get out of here? Oh. I don't know. I just love that dynamic. And D&D 6e, and you cannot tell me that it's not 6e wizards. You cannot silence me.
No.
D&D 1.
No. Okay, let's say it correctly. It is 1 D&D.
That's not even correct. It's D&D 1.
No, it's not. It's 1 D&D.
Let me look at this PDF. Scrolling up.
I swear.
Scrolling up.
I've already forgotten what we're talking about.
Because the whole purpose of it is to unify everything into 1 D&D. Which is actually very interesting coming from the corporate world. My own company talks about one blank. I won't say what company, but a lot of corporate companies are doing the same thing, and it's all about unifying into one specific idea, one specific goal.
Okay, because it is 1 D&D.
Yes,
which actually makes more sense because otherwise it would read like D and done, and that's probably not a good seller.
Yup.
Yep. I just had a D and I'm done. Oh wait, did I say that?
If you looked at what I just showed the world on my quick start menu, yeah. Am I gonna remember to edit that out? No. So. I like to have fun. But yeah, unifying.
Yeah, so I'm going to respectfully disagree with you on, the edition 6 because, like they said, they are trying to unify everything and making it to where they're like breaking down those barriers so that you can do what you want to do, and you're not marred down by specific rules. They're taking all this basically homebrew from players, and they're allowing you to do that. They're making it more official.
Fair enough.
But back to halflings, though.
Yes. Back to halflings.
So what I've always loved about like the luck feat and the luck feature with the halflings, which is now built into the race as opposed to being a feat associated with the race. I think it kind of draws on like our natural tendency to like look at like this cute little halfling in this party of very tall people, and you just kind of feel almost bad for it, and you want it to not get hurt because it almost seems like a child, even though it's a fully grown creature.
Yeah.
So like that whenever I've seen a halfling succeed in like the luck situation, I'm always just like, oh my god.
Yeah, the mascot of the party usually. But what's so crazy about this edition of luck, I don't think you could critically fail as a halfling.
When you roll a 1 on the D20 of a D20 test, you can re-roll the die, and you must use. So you can get a 1 if it's the second, if it's on the re-roll, but that's actually really cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. But that feat was already kind of in the lucky feature of halflings before.
But wasn't it only like once per day or something like that, or it's just like advantage?
No, you would be able to re-roll.
Yeah, but like how many times per day though?
That I don't remember off the top of my head. I think it was. I think you're right. I think it was once per day.
Because this is all the time. And this is where I'm like,
Well, okay, but here's what I'm thinking. Like, Blake is an absurdly lucky person, and that doesn't go away. It's not like he's just like lucky once per day.
I wasn't lucky when we played Risk.
I don't want to talk about that Risk game, honestly. we need to talk about that Risk game off camera. Ooh, I'm still feeling some sort of way about it.
No. Okay, so you were saying?
Like, I think like when you associate a creature with being lucky, it's not like lucky once and then it's
Oh
fucked.
yeah, and I'm not saying I
You know?
hate this, like especially compared to the gnomes passive and the Ardlings special ability.
Yeah.
Like I feel like
Yeah.
this, if we're gonna give those juicy powers out, this definitely reaches those heights, especially compared to the dwarves and the Dragonborn, where I think those are not as cool. Um, but yeah, I don't hate this. I don't hate this. I think this is always going to be cool no matter what level you are. I'm really glad that they're taking these races where they're giving you abilities that are always going to be relevant. I was just taken aback as of how bold. But fortune favors the bold.
Truth.
Talk about luck. Let's see if there's anything else about the halfling. I think that's pretty much the most notable
No.
thing.
I'm done with them.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, we're done. Moving next to the orc. Very interesting that we're not playing around with half orcs as the introductory class. I mean, the introductory race of the player's handbook. We're going full orc, not half orc. I like that. And this kind of harkens back to the rules about mixing ancestries, which I really like that it's not just human, elf, human, orc. I'm really glad that they're moving away from that.
Yeah.
So we have full-blown orcs. How do we feel?
Mm-hmm. I think I feel like the orcs are like the one race who have like by necessity almost keep a lot of what they used to have associated with them racially.
Mm-hmm.
That and I mean that may just be my perception, not having actually like done the playtesting on this yet, but they still feel like they are built by their nature to just be the beefy tanky creatures, and which again, you know, it fits with kind of like the cultural perception of what the orcs are from fantasy lit. But I feel like orcs are the ones who have kind of benefited the least from like the racial redesign that Wizards has done. I don't know what you guys feel about it, but that I kind of felt almost like the orcs almost were like an afterthought with that.
Ooh.
I mean, that's maybe not the best way to say it because I'm sure they thought about it very carefully.
Maybe that they didn't need to really do much because it was already
so codified.
Yeah, afterthought is the wrong word.
I disagree in favor of Wizards, honestly. Who would have thought? I think these class abilities could be useful for a lot of builds. I think Adrenaline Rush, you take the dash action as a bonus action. When you do, you gain a number of temporary hit points equal to your proficiency bonus. I think that is really great and can open up opportunities for more glass cannony wizard characters, even to kind of kite, or even allow them to be more melee oriented. In that regard, powerful build, you count as one size larger when determining your carrying capacity. That can be used for potions, that can be used for scrolls, magical staffs, wands, and relentless endurance. I mean, everyone could use that.
Yeah.
So I think these are still applicable to a wider range of classes, and I always love like an orc sorcerer could totally work now since their charisma isn't stifled. So I think to completely disagree, I think they really benefited. I think the orcs are going to be. I'm really intrigued to see what builds people come up with.
Okay, yeah, that's a fair point because maybe again that's just like I'm so used to thinking about orcs in that way that like I instantly kind of went like with like seeing powerful build. I was like, oh yeah, of course they can like
do that.
You know, like pick up a full grown man and throw him 20 meters. You know, it's
but now I can do that as a sorcerer.
Yeah. Into a magical trap you set. Anything else about orcs?
I'm good.
All right. Okay, so I think the
Halflings.
the most popular race currently in D&D is definitely the tiefling. I love a tiefling. I think they're my third. I think they're just so enchanting. I don't know what the word is. I think the idea of being born like half demon is really has a lot of resonance for a lot of people. I think as queer people, I think we have a natural drawn word. I don't know what the word is, but an appreciation and empathy for them because we've been made to feel that way about like our
Totally that.
sexuality, gender expression, things like that.
That feeling of being other, right?
Yeah.
And being written off as like sinful or demonic for something you can't really control. So I think that adding tieflings to the base player's handbook was a really another chef's kiss moment for wizards, and I love this race. But how do we feel about it in 1D&D?
So I really like what they've done with the kind of like mirroring what they did with the RD
Ardling.
Aardlings.
Mhm.
Aardlings. I almost said aardvarks.
So kind of right.
And
Yeah.
There we go.
So like again, kind of like you have these multiple sets of the lower realms in D&D, so it doesn't make sense to only tie it into the one when I mean they're so similar in what they represent as far as like their place in the world. So I think kind of opening it up in that sense, it gives people a little bit more of a sense mechanically as far as what they want to build, and I think it's a good kind of counter to what they did with the Aardlings in that respect as well. Like it wouldn't make sense for them to do that for one of these races and not the other. And I think what they let you have more control of the appearance of the tiefling, which I think is really cool because like now they don't always have to be these like blue, these purple or red skinned like demon horned things. It gives you a lot more flexibility with what you're looking for.
And I've never followed those color suggestions. I said, "You don't tell me that. I want to be blue." Like always.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, I love the fact that I can be a small tiefling, and I'd be a little shit imp, like.
Yeah.
You know, I love that very much.
Yeah.
Kind of like making almost. I've always kind of seen it as like I see that kind of like building a bridge almost between like the tiefling and like imps or like the monstrous races, like because like with some of those monstrous races, they're also kind of tied to an entity of the lower realms. So I think that kind of continuity tracks a little bit with how they're presenting.
Oh hell yeah! And imagining like, oh, I'm half tiefling. I cannot wait to meet my dad. And then it's just a little, bootlicking imp, like a terrible, like baby from Dimension 20, and be like, oh, I'm never gonna be taller than 3 feet. Okay. I think that's a fun angle to play with. Don't steal my idea.
No, that's yours.
Yep.
That's fully mine. I'm gonna copyright it. If you take it, I'm gonna try to sue you, just like that girl tried to sue Critical Role. Did you guys hear about that? Not
No.
well.
No.
But I am different. How?
Okay.
Not sure. I'm more unhinged, probably, so it will go better for me. But like, isn't your character a tiefling?
No, so mine is a little homebrew. I am I'm sorry, my brain is not working. What am I?
Dumpier.
I'm a Dompier, so I'm half vampire.
Ooh, half vampire. Whoa! But no,
They all sound like that. It's amazing.
I mean, that ass. That's how I make all my Dampiers sound. Like you're a vampire.
No,
you have this
mine
accent
does
now.
not sound like that. But yeah, so mine, yeah, not a tiefling.
Okay. How do you feel about tieflings? Where do they rank?
Tiefling? For me,
How many
they're
smiles
at the
out of
higher-
5 do they get?
How many smiles out of 5? It's 4.5.
Oh!
Honestly, I'll say about all of these races that we've gone through so far, tieflings and Aardlings are at the top of my list. Elves would be next, but it's just that they sound very interesting, and also I never even thought about it the way you did about from a queer perspective, and that just sort of spooked me in the moment. So yeah, maybe I'll be a tiefling next time. Well, actually, the next one I've already chosen my race.
Oh.
My next character. I mean, my third character.
Ooh. I haven't chosen mine yet. That is if I'm invited.
Of course you are.
Okay.
I didn't know. I was like, wait, what's going on with that one? Okay. So how do we feel about the abilities of this tiefling? It's a lot like 5e. I mean, D&D, the original 1 D&D. The 1 D&D first edition.
Yes.
How it is now. Previously.
I mean, I like what I'm liking what they're doing with like the tieflings and what they're doing with the Aardlings, with having like a couple of spells built in.
Yeah.
Because I think it really makes sense. Like if you've got like with the sorcerer class, this idea of like the draconic blood as your sorceress origin, this idea of a power in the blood, it brings consistency to that. So I really love that. I think it gives the appropriate flavor, and I think like, I don't know what it is, but like people really love stories where like the bad guy uses blood magic for some reason, and so I think it kind of can even give that kind of story a little bit more weight.
I mean, if anyone uses blood magic, people just lean in like, ooh, blood, ooh, a biohazard, ooh. If only they thought that way about the Red Cross, save a lot of lives. But yeah, I totally agree, and I'm really curious to see how people are able to use this base cantrip with interesting combinations of classes. Maybe we have again another barbarian, but he uses or a fighter and uses chill touch, or I don't know how that would work because we don't have the rest of the rules. But I'm very curious to see what kind of shenanigans Wizards of the Coast allows.
And I think that was going to be in the next playtest release. Something about that, about like how some of these spells would work with the new character, character abilities and things, or race abilities and things like that. So we're going to explore more of that in the future.
Yeah, and we'll get to how they split up spells later because that's pretty new and exciting. But I'm going to save that for last because that's where I'm going to get on my Pathfinder high horse a lot. But we're moving on to backgrounds, which is another thing they kind of stole from Pathfinder 2nd edition, but it's a welcome improvement to how they are originally doing things. You get a feat from your background, and you get your ability score modifiers from your background as well. Previously in 5th edition, you got tools, you got a weird ability that not a lot of people used or took full advantage of, and like a dice. You could roll dice and choose things from a list, which I thought was kind of limiting but helpful. Here, and kind of reflected in Pathfinder 2nd edition, you get some a bonus to ability scores. You get predetermined skill proficiencies. You get a tool proficiency in a lot of these. What I find weird is that you also get a language out of these backgrounds. I don't know if this fits. I think a lot of these are a stretch. But how do you feel about these new backgrounds?
So like I was saying, like I was saying before, I think I think this is perfect. I think this is exactly where we needed to go because I think that's where a lot of DMs are already going.
Mm-hmm.
I agree that the language is the one thing that's a little bit interesting because in the past, not as I recall, not every background gave you an additional language.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that it does afford you more opportunity for customization.
Mm-hmm.
So, like as an acolyte, for instance, or like a mage in training, or however you want to title that now,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you can work that in story wise a little better. I think it gives you, it's more of like a selective tool you can use, and I don't see why as a DM you couldn't even like look at that and say it doesn't make sense for this character to know an additional language through this, so why not give them an additional tool proficiency,
Mm-hmm.
or kind of like take that benefit and morph that into something else.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I totally agree with what you were saying. Like some of the traits that were locked to a given class, for instance, or to a given background, for instance, like I like that one ability. What is it like the folksy folk hero,
The folk
where
hero.
like where you would be like welcomed in by any villager who was like, oh, you seem like a folk hero. It's just like I have never used like I've always found that one kind of like relatively useless.
And a lot of them overlap each other where you just have room and board somewhere and they were a flop. They were a 5th edition flop. So I'm glad how they're evolving it this time.
Yeah.
It'll help. Pathfinder. I said it. And I'm not proud to be this elitist. But I think a lot of these are reflected in the 5th edition handbook. Happy to see cultist added. Happy to see charlatan remain. I'm cool. I think it's cool that anyone can be an entertainer. Still from 5th edition. I think people think they want to be a bard, but don't want to be based off the mechanics. So I think really honing it in with the entertainer background and allowing that like mechanical flavor in there. But Blake, do any of these pop out at you? Do any of these give you that flavor that you want to savor? Like, yeah.
Hey, I'm all for being a musician since I am in real life. So.
Oh my god, I didn't know that about you.
Yes, I'm a singer.
I knew you sang, but I didn't know.
Oh, well, I don't do a musical instrument, but I mean, it's cool because, you know, maybe I will be a sorcerer musician and work the music into my spells somehow. Something kind of like that.
Right. So, like, something that was, like, traditionally something like you would only expect to see from a bard.
I can do that now, yeah.
Yeah. Like, or maybe, like, you want to be a barbarian and, like, you sing while you hack off arms. You know, it's
well that I yeah,
like
oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, I'm thinking of like an arm chopping song. Like, what do we do? You know, the hand bone's connected to the arm bone.
Not
anymore. You beat me to it. I also like how they're giving like different variations on a lot of themes. For example, pilgrim, cultist, and acolyte. Those are very different mindsets. I think that's going to encourage people to think about a lot of these classes in different ways. And one of my things I don't really like is how people spurn like clerics because they only think of, you know, types of religions that we see in our current life and how they're
Mhm.
all like one god of light, and but there's so many different religions and so many different ways to interpret that, and putting these into like backgrounds and explaining them a little bit more is pretty cool. And I
Yeah.
also love the guide background, because if you play 5e, the only background that really makes sense for a druid is a hermit. And I don't necessarily think my druids would be hermits. You know, they're like pretty folksy. They kind of love other people. So having a guide as an option is really nice, and really opens up things for us druids and other nature folk.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's all I've got to say about that. So we're gonna move on to feats. How do we feel about these feats?
Yes. So I'll admit I haven't spent as much time with what we're doing with these feats listed here. I think what I want to do is wait a little bit and see more about how they're like how it's actually implemented.
Yeah.
I don't know that I have very strong feelings about this just yet, so I'm gonna kind of withhold my judgment until I've seen it in action.
Well, I'm going to give you all my thoughts and opinions, because here's what I think is going to happen. And I'm going to be really pretentious again and elitist. I think they're taking a lot from Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
As you can see in these feat descriptions, a lot of these have first level feat attached to them. So these are just feats that you would take at first level, which makes me believe that you will get a free feat every couple of levels, besides the ones that you get from your class. And this is reflected in Pathfinder.
That's what I want to kind of wait and see, because currently it's like you have to like pick between an ability score and traits or getting a feat,
which is always ability score in 5th edition.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot think of many reasons why you would ever take a feat in 5th edition, because that's going to hamper your character so much, because you just need to boost that ability. So having free feats, I love it. I love it. I'm so glad they're doing this. And these feats rock. I like these feats. A lot of the ones in Pathfinder are so niche that I think a lot of my players forget about them. Whereas these are fairly flavorful, very powerful. Some of the ones I really like are healer. Anyone can take a healing feat and have this battle medic action. Again, this is another Pathfinder holdover. So anyone can be a healer. This is very nice, allowing clerics to use spells that aren't just healing. They're not just putting out buffs and healings. They could do other cool things, use their domain spells, use their stealthy spells if they're a trickster, their death spells if they're a death cleric. And really opening that ability up to more classes is only a good thing. So love that. Love Magic Initiate giving cantrips to so many people. I think that's going to be really interesting to see how that affects the worlds of Dungeons and Dragons, because right now Magic is kind of gated off. Not all people know Magic, depending on which world you're in. Obviously, that changes if you're going to Spelljammer or like Eberron. So giving people this starting feat and seeing so many races have Magic from the get-go, I'm really intrigued to see how that changes these predefined worlds, and what rules that they have for low magic settings. Really intrigued for that. Savage Attacker is another feat that's wild to me. You have trained to deal particularly damaging strikes when you take the attack action and hit a target with a weapon. As part of that action, you roll the weapon's damage dice twice and use either roll against the target. You can use this benefit only once per turn. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
It really helps with that feeling of rolling 2 1s or rolling a 1 on your only attack that round. It's such a disappointment. Or having a spell where you roll and you only get ones. That's happened to my players so many times and so sad. So I love like giving players this ability to kind of negate that. Love it.
Mhm.
I also fucking love so much. And when we play our campaign for my unkillable monk, I would like to request this feat because Tavern Brawler
Tavern Brawler.
is
That one did catch my eye.
Yeah.
so delicious. Enhance unarmed strike. When you hit with your unarmed strike and deal damage, you can deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d4 plus your strength modifier instead of the normal damage of an unarmed strike. Okay, that's the same as like what it is 5e damage rerolls. Whenever you roll a damage die for your unarmed strike, you can reroll the die if it rolls a 1. Nice, love that from Savage Attacker, and I'm wondering if I can stack those. Very curious if that happens. Let me see actually. With a weapon. Okay, never mind. I think everyone gets shoved if they use unarmed attack, so I don't really know.
Furniture as weapons.
Furniture is fucking weapons, though. They have something like this.
So that's good because this is something that's always bothered me about 5e is like you can use any object as a weapon, but it always gets treated as an unarmed strike, right? So like if I pick up a table and smack somebody with the table,
that's more
like,
than an unarmed
that's
strike.
more than an unarmed strike.
Hell yeah.
You know, it's like
yes, I'm so glad they. And this was another thing they kind of took from like Pathfinder, but this within Pathfinder, it's a whole archetype, which I'm not going to get into. It's you can choose subclasses in Pathfinder. They're not locked to a specific class like in D&D. Like any class can take a lot of these archetypes based off of prerequisites, but you have to dump your free archetype into this like subclass to get this. Whereas this is just one feat. You're not married to it, and it's just so juicy. Like, a great club. It's a great club if you're using a large weapon or just a normal club for it. It's simple, it's quick. I don't have to look at a table, and I'm not holding people up for something so simple and silly. Love this. And for my upcoming character, I definitely want this. I don't know if you'll allow one D&D feats, but
yeah, I like absolutely. My whole DM style is all about what's most flexible and going to benefit. Like, I want my table to be enjoyable, and I like, for me at least, rules lawyering like is a little bit painful. So like the rules are there, but at the same time, like D&D is meant to be an expansive universe.
No.
So yeah, I like if it's playtest material, like bring it on, because like I home, like my whole world is homebrew. I homebrew spells, like it's absolutely bring it on.
Yeah, and I just love that they have this in here because I am a bit of a rules lawyer. I don't think I'm extreme. I definitely want to make sure that like the game is moving fast, but I definitely want to respect what the game is more so than like playing fast and loose. So I just love that they're adding this in because I usually like what does the book say, and we'll go with that. But I'm not looking that up right now. So that's just my style, but that's neither here nor there. So I'm glad you're letting me do that because I fucking love this fight. I love it. Okay. So moving on to the rules glossary, there's a couple of things that I found very interesting. For example, there are no class-specific spell lists anymore. This is something that is taken from Pathfinder 2E, and I think this is a great decision. There's in Pathfinder 2E, there's 4 different spell lists. There's Primal, Arcane, Divine, and Occult. In D&D, they're just going with 3, and I believe that's Arcane, Primal, and Divine. And I love this. I think this is so much easier. I think it's going to save so much space in rule books.
And time doing level ups.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god, it's gonna make it so much quicker. It's gonna make it so much faster. Love this change. I think this is great. I love that they're stealing this. So another thing is critical hits. And this was explained to me on TikTok. I didn't see this when I first read these rules. So I'm going to read this out, and then we can break down what this means for us. Weapons and unarmed strikes is a special feature for player characters. Underlined. It's not underlined in here, but it should be underlined. Critical hits. If a player rolls a 20 for an attack roll with a weapon or an unarmed strike, underline. We're going to revisit that. The attack is also a critical hit, which means it deals extra damage to the target. You roll the damage dice of the weapon or unarmed strike a second time. So this isn't bonus damage, sneak attack damage, what other extra damage as well. And add the second roll as extra damage to the target. For example, a mace deals bludgeoning damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength modifier. If you score a critical hit with the mace, it instead deals 2d6 plus your strength modifier. So,
okay.
Before, just to remind everyone at home watching right now, before, I believe, do not quote me on this, but this is how I've done it. I've done it 2 different ways. The original way I've done it is you double all damage. Like, if you get a 20 on an attack roll of any kind, you double the damage. So even if it's an Eldritch Blast, even if it's like a punch, you do 1d6 plus strength times 2. And then in my Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign, our critical hits were you roll for the initial damage, and then you add the full damage to the second part, if that makes sense. So if it's a 1d6, you roll a 1d6, and then you add 6, and then you add the strength or whatever.
Yeah.
So now you just re-roll the weapon dice, and then you add everything else after. You don't double that. How do we feel about that? How do we feel about that?
I personally love that because getting, like, rolling a 1 on your damage die for a critical hit sucks.
No, but that's how it's still going to be. That's still how it's going to be.
Well, no, because if I mean, it still sucks, but you don't have to. So if you roll a 1, you've got your 1, and that's doubled to 2. Whoopee. You know, so I've got now my strength modifier plus 2, but now if I roll a 1,
and then
I can then roll a 10 after, you know. Now, at the same time, it does dampen down the joy of rolling a 10 on your damage die with your longbow, I think.
And then doubling your strength modifier or whatever modifier.
Well, I think the rule is the modifier is not double, it's just the damage die value that gets doubled.
Oh, I've been doing it wrong then.
Damage, so, for example, damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength modifier. Yeah. So yeah, you would roll.
So the modifier doesn't get doubled. It's just
for this new one. But I think originally the modifier would get doubled, right?
I don't believe that's accurate.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we learn something new every day, and if you come for this channel for me to be an expert, despite my long list of experience, you're not getting that. So, well, I was doing it wrong this whole time. So, but how do you feel about monsters not getting critical hits? I like it.
I think for the players, so as a player, I do like that. Like, the fear of getting critted by a monster and getting killed is frightening. As a DM, I have mixed feelings.
Okay.
Because there have been times when, like, like been in a situation where like I don't want to necessarily kill a player, but the monster's got a critical hit, and that's not going to help their situation.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I do think that kind of takes away a little bit of the teeth from my ability as a DM to have the monster be a menacing presence.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the shock of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I mean, is this something where though you could do like maybe for your typical like your mimics and your whatever you're going up against, but maybe like the big bad they can have the critical like, or is that like?
Oh, I mean, we could always homebrew it.
Yeah, homebrew it. If it,
Right. And keep in mind, this is again playtest to see like
Mm.
how it works and what people feel about what works and what doesn't. So I'm foreseeing as a DM that kind of is a little bit to me, but we'll see how it goes.
But
then I mean, it would also stop somebody who you just created a character, you put all this time in, and then you guys are going out, and then all of a sudden you get killed by a
goblin
rat swarm or something like that, because they just happen to get a critical hit.
Mm-hmm. I think this is great. I think this is a great addition. If they balance it with that in mind, I think you could still have a menacing character, but you will have more of an understanding of what your monster's damage output is going to be. Because I cannot tell you how many times I thought I set up a fair fight for my players and they get destroyed by critical hits. So many. I mean, if you're watching this channel, if you have watched this channel from the jump, you fucking know how many times this has happened to me. And I've used all the encounter generators. I've done the math. I've made the character so OP by giving them so many items that I regret it. And they still, like, the Foundry virtual tabletop is out to get them. And so I think this is great. I love just having that control and just knowing. And I think that the monsters you won't have to roll for their damage. I'm just gonna guess that because they kind of do it now. It's optional. They kind of put it in parentheses, but they say average like damage if you look like a monster manual stat block. I think they're gonna go more in that direction, and I like it. I like that more. I just want to know like what I'm doing to my players, and if they lose the fight, it's their fault, pretty much. Like I want to know that it's not the rolls; it's their fault. So that's how I feel.
Okay.
And if you want to sue me, you can't.
No, don't say that. Don't say that out
loud. They don't know my real name. They only know me as Messy B. Let's see. And then
personally, can I say I really like what they've done with the grappled condition?
Tell me more.
It's always bothered me that being grappled doesn't necessarily, it doesn't seem like that big of an issue.
Yes.
This really, I think, gives more of an urgency to getting out of the grapple and makes that a much more concerning situation to be in.
Oh, 100%. And this is I like about Pathfinder. In Pathfinder, being grappled is such a pain in the ass. It makes you flat-footed. You have to bird in action to get out of the grapple. You can't move away. You trigger reactions or attacks of opportunities if you use something with the manipulate trait. It is, and that's just a basic grapple before you add like skill feats and shit like that, because then you can become a wrestler archetype and then suplex them. It's a whole thing. So giving grapplers or giving grapple, making it a problem instead of just like, oh, I can just do like a bonus action to get out of it. Love it. I'm gonna be grappling the shit out of people in 1D&D because I want to in 5th edition, but there's no reason, and that's something I don't like about 5th edition. And I hope, and I'm seeing they're making a change where it's just like You don't just stand in one space and you don't just spam attack, or cantrip. I hope it's more dynamic. I hope there's more movement. I hope there's more status effects, and you really have to think about that and debuffing and positioning and things like that. So
Yes.
So, and in conclusion, how do we feel?
I'm excited. I as I've said a couple times, I'm new to this world, and reading through this, like it does. I remember trying to read through rules and the stuff when I first started, and I was just like, "What the fuck am I doing?" This just feels more comfortable breaking into. And yes, some of the changes we talked about, I'm excited. I was so funny because I was grappled in our campaign, and I'm just like,
okay,
like, what am I supposed to like? Oh my, and now I'm reading this, I'm like, ugh, that would not have been a good situation. Yeah. So, but yeah, no.
Overall, I'm very excited about this playtest. I think that, as Blake said, it can make things a lot easier for new players, especially in the character creation phase. And I think that as a homebrewer, it makes me hopeful, very hopeful, that they'll continue to give us more and more flexibility over the worlds we create. And I think that a lot of that is going to be just kind of naturally codified, that it's meant to be, whatever you want it to be. It's not just about sticking to old tropes, and it can give us a lot more flexibility than we've even imagined we had in the past. So I'm excited to see where this goes, and I'm looking forward to more great things here.
And I definitely agree. I think I have some reservations about 1D&D and how they're going to go about it. I think that is going to be a video for a different time and place. I think these are a great direction. As it stands now, unless I really like the people, I would not play D&D again. But I'm going to play with you guys, obviously. But if I'm DMing and
like us,
I like you, I really, really like you. But if I had my choice, I would probably never play around with it again. I have a lot of issues with it, and I just feel that Pathfinder is where I want to spend more time in the world and the rules and stuff like that. But with these new rules and seeing how they're taking from Pathfinder and still keeping things simple with the disadvantage and advantage system as kind of their bedrock, but still trying to add that complexity, the customization, and the more tactical mindset. I'm really excited. If they're able to pull it off, I might change back to D&D. A lot of things I don't like about Pathfinder is all the math that I have to do, and I have to use a specific software to play the game, or else it would take decades. So very excited, very intrigued, and we'll just see. But thank you guys so much for hopping on the channel.
Thanks for having
thank
us.
you.
Of course, hashing this out. Viewers, you will probably see more of these two in the coming months as I build up the channel more and start doing more one-shots and stuff like that. Of course, I've got to plug the other things on the Twitch channel. Every other Sunday, we have my homebrew campaign in Pathfinder 2nd Edition, just called Pathfinder Society. It's wacky, it's wild, it's all my campaign ideas and stuff like that. Fast and loose. I don't remember half the plot points that I put down, but it's a good time. We have a lot of fun. The other Sundays, we play Strength of Thousands, which is a pre-made adventure path by Paizo. inspired by African folklore, and we are in a magical school, the best one in all of Galarian. We're going to classes, we're solving mysteries, we're falling in love, we're doing pranks on other students, we're cussing out a lot of teachers. And so it's a good time. And then every other Wednesday, it's another homebrew Pathfinder 2nd Edition campaign. But I'm a player this time. Doom Dynasty by first-time DM Captain Sham. It's really great. She's really showing me up on my own damn channel, and I love her for it. And this upcoming Saturday, the end of October 2022, I don't know the specific dates, whatever, is the final episode of my 1.5 long Waterdeep Dragon Heist campaign. So we might cry. We're going to dress up as characters. So definitely check that out. But thank you for watching, and say goodbye.
Bye.
Right.
Bye.